Driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Not quite. It's actually Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez, and she's asked me to join today. I think she's just doing some Halloween duties, so she'll be back on Monday, returning as your regular host of Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. But it's me, Paul Chivari, today with all of your Halloween delights. Trick or treat, I guess you can just call this a trick on you if you didn't want me here, or a treat if you did want me here. I want to remind everyone that you can give us a call today at 773-763-9278. That's 773-763-WCPT. You can also text us at that number as well. Wanted to get to some of the top stories going around the nation and as well as right here in Illinois. The government shutdown has reached day number 31. We just have 4 more days until the shutdown will tie the record for the longest U.S. government shutdown, which was back in 2018, carrying over into 2019 when, surprise, surprise, President Donald Trump was in office. Trump is looking for a way for the Republican senators to come to an agreement and end the shutdown. They need to eliminate the filibuster. So he wanted the GOP senators to eliminate the filibuster through the nuclear option. And some of the leaders in the GOP Senate are saying, no, that's not going to be an option whatsoever. Meanwhile, with the shutdown still looming, tomorrow would be November 1st, and SNAP benefits would run out for many Americans. But a Rhode Island federal judge ruled that the U.S. Department of Agriculture must distribute SNAP benefits to recipients as soon as possible. Shortly after, another federal judge ruled that withholding of the SNAP benefits were illegal in another case. But meanwhile, an executive order by Governor J.B. Pritzker has addressed the food insecurity and food access in Illinois, and I printed out the whole thing here. I always like when you read these executive orders how, or just any sort of legalese where it just starts with whereas, whereas the Trump administration has taken unprecedented actions that will dramatically increase food insecurity and hunger in Illinois, and whereas the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which we know as SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, is one of the most effective federal programs that for 60 years has provided access to critical food benefits and alleviated poverty while also stimulated local economies. And whereas over 1.8 million Illinois residents receive SNAP benefits with $4.7 billion of federal funds invested in Illinois annually. And whereas SNAP supports working families, older adults, veterans, people with disabilities, and children. And whereas SNAP spending has driven economic output of $1.3 billion across grocery and other retailing industries in Illinois. I could keep going with the whereases. There's a whole nother 2 pages to this, but this was just yesterday that the governor issued this executive order. It was filed with the Secretary of State, and the executive order shall take effect immediately. So I think as far as Illinois is concerned, in the short term, SNAP benefits will not run out for Illinois residents. I want to remind everyone, give us a call, 773-763-9278. That's 773-763-WCPT. I have some guests for the show today. In the first hour, we're going to be talking to Mark Gevaart, the producer of My Labor Radio, an independent community access radio program that airs every Wednesday on WELT 95.7 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. In the second hour, I'm going to talk to Jen Golbeck, a professor, computer scientist, psychologist, quote, expert in the far-right online extremism, AI, and bad things on the internet. She's also the author of the MAGAReport, which is on Substack. I'm also going to be talking to Reed Showalter, who is a candidate for Congress in the 7th District of Illinois. That is the congressional seat that will be left open by Danny Davis because he is not seeking re-election in 2026. And it is quite a fight for that Democratic primary with a lot of big names already lining up for that spot. So it's going to be an interesting race in the next few months here as we build to the March primaries. I'm also going to be talking to Neil Khot. If you remember, Neil was on with Patti about 2 weeks ago. He's a candidate for Congress in the 8th District of Illinois, but he returns to discuss a reward that he and Congressman Danny Davis had announced this week for help in finding a young woman who's been missing for 2 weeks now. So we'll have all of that and more today. And I want your opinions on some of the stuff going on with the government shutdown. And this is a unique thing. I think the Democrats have been wanting to end the filibuster for quite some time now. And the filibuster has existed in the Senate for quite some time now. You need 60 votes in order to beat that, which currently the Senate just does not have that. I don't think we've had a supermajority in the Senate since the 1970s, I want to say. And even then, in order to just straight up oust the filibuster by vote, you would need 67 votes, which is why the president was calling for the nuclear option, in which I don't know specifically how the nuclear option works, but he's not getting the support from, John Cornyn, Senator Thune, and other Republican leaders that are looking to keep that. What we do know is that the Democrats have been trying to end this for a while, and I would wonder, at least from a, I think an all-around, my opinion, ethical situation, the majority rule in the Senate, which I think was the original rule, reverting back to that, might not be the end of the world in terms of the overall end game way down the road for the health of the country. Having that around, it's a political tool that the minority can use to at least get the majority to try to negotiate with them for some sort of compromise. And in this case, specifically to this case, the Democrats are trying to, get health care benefits extended and using this position that has been used on them in the past in order to get this going, in which the Republicans have not wanted to compromise with them on this. So we'll see what this ends up, what the end game is going to be. But this is a government shutdown that if it gets through the weekend, if it gets to Tuesday, will tie the record for the longest government shutdown. And I think you're going to see more and more how this is going to affect people overall. And we've already seen some of the stuff that the Trump administration has been doing while the government has been shut down. And it's, from firing federal employees, which has been questioned in the courts, to building an addition on the White House without congressional approval, in addition to some of the other stuff that they've been doing even when the government was still intact, like tariffs and how they've been adjusting the different tariff rates without consulting Congress on that. In the next segment, I'll talk a little bit more about the filibuster, and I want to get some of your opinions on that. And I see we got a caller on the line. I'm going to hold him until the next segment here. Actually, you know what? We got time. I'll take it right now. Jim from Chicago, thank you for joining Driving It Home today.
Hi, Paul. First of all, that word itself is a Spanish word for freebooters. And what it applies to is like a vigilante group. This is the 1850s who was used in America.
You're talking about the filibuster, right, Jim?
Yeah, the word itself is a Spanish word. It means freebooter.
I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, the point is they used it in the 1850s for different vigilante groups who had the money, and they could get like maybe 800 guys that for some political purpose they would go there and raise havoc, in Missouri and so on and so forth. But anyway, it's been around, but that's at least 175 years ago. But in this particular case, the Republicans are using medicine and food as a weapon against the American citizen. They're using both. It's a dual thing where you're trying to get rid of food and medicine. Now, that is really extraordinary, especially when you think about when the SNAP program started about 60 years ago, and it's been successful for 60 years. But why now? Why would Republicans? I know the billionaires would love to sell us burial insurance because we'd be quicker to be dead. I imagine a lot of people will die as a result of this. So I imagine they might have a scheme. They have the private prison, so now they'll probably have a private burial insurance. They'll give you a cut rate. $2,000 will bury you. Wherever that may be, in Musk's backyard somewhere, or Peter Thiel or one of these guys. But I mean, imagine this. In 2025, they want to cut medicine and food. Now, but Trump, in April, he was given an option to give these food banks, like, I don't know, a couple of bananas and a couple. Oh, no, they don't want that. They don't need that. And then he continues on. He wants a nuclear option to what? To stop these are people. Some of these people voted for this guy, Paul. Wouldn't you guess? I guess some of these people are going to suffer voting for him. I imagine. He got 78 million votes. I imagine 78 million of them aren't all like his friends, Musk and Peter Thiel and these people.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that some of the voting base is going to be affected by SNAP benefits disappearing. And, I don't know how many that would be.
Well, yeah, but it's in the millions. It's in the millions. 40 million people get SNAP or some ungodly amount of people. And then the southern Illinois, where they vote Republican consistently, they're really going to get screwed on the health care premiums. I mean, they're going to go up. Can you imagine? Say you're paying $700, Paul, for your insurance.
Yeah.
And you get up, and it's $2,000.
Yeah.
And where are you going to get the $1,300 pronto? You got to get it pronto. Then where are you going to get it pronto? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just adds to the fabric of America. My God, talk about tearing at the fabric of America. The Democrats have to hold the line. They have no choice in this matter. They have to hold the line. We have to get reasonable health care. Not only that, but I worked for National Health Insurance as I was a kid in college. I attended a lot of meetings and so on. I was all for national health insurance, and I thought Obamacare was a good step forward. In fact, the Dominican nuns I had at Rosary, now Dominican University, they were on the bus for Obamacare because they knew that we needed health care desperately. But of course, the Republicans wouldn't give us the option of insuring everybody because they wanted, they're in bed with the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Paul. You have a great show, and good to hear you, buddy. It's nice to hear your voice, Paul.
Thanks, Jim. Likewise. I always like hearing from you. That's Jim from Chicago calling in. And you can call in as well, 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. You can also text us at that line, which we've had one of our texters right now saying open the Epstein files. And that's true. Since the government has been shut down, it does prevent any sort of congressional action on trying to get the Epstein files released. Was it the ballroom? Come on, man. We have to have a place to dance. So it's a few dollars. Give it a break. I don't like the cost of the ballroom, but I'm one of the few in the minority that says, build the ballroom. It's, Donald Trump is president. He's been president now two separate terms. And we know that his expertise is in building gaudy eyesores and, trying to put his name on things. And if he wants to have a ballroom on the White House with his name on it, I think it's part of our American history. And as much as I don't like that, I do think that we can't change our history, and it should be there, and it should be a reminder that this is what happens when you elect someone with no political experience who was a real estate mogul with heaps of legal issues in some of his business dealings, trailing him. Ended up doing what he always does. That's just how it goes. That's just who he is. This is the man we elected to the White House. This is on brand for him completely. But 773-763-9278. We'll be back with more of Driving It Home. I'm Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez.
Amy Goodman reports on the news stories rarely covered by the corporate media. Democracy Now!
The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office warned Palestinian children are at high risk of injury or death from unexploded ordnance left after more than 13 months of Israeli attacks. 8-year-old Mohammed Karmash, this is his mother.
No one was there to tell him that these are explosives that the Israelis throw.
Democracy Now! Weekday evenings at 10 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
WCPT Replay.
I am, of course, thrilled to be joined by Simon Rosenberg. There is an incredible body of language and thought and argumentation around encouraging violence on the right against those other people. There is no such ideology on the left. It just doesn't exist. In fact, our movement is desperately, ferociously fighting to preserve rule of law and democracy. Battling liberalism is the central undertaking of our collective project. And we've seen millions and millions and millions of people this year, tens of millions, protest legally without any incident. It's incredible how many people have been on the street this year with no incidents of any kind. Mm-hmm. All of this is we're channeling our frustrations in the way that you do in a democracy.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
And it's Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez. She will be back on Monday. Want to remind everybody that you can give us a call, 773-763-9278. That's 773-763-WCPT on the Credo Mobile phone and text line. And through today, WCPT listeners can get 25% off for 2 years at Credo Mobile with the code WCPT25. Credo Mobile, a progressive phone company that is better for all people and the planet. Visit credomobile.com. And I highly encourage you, if you're remotely interested in that, do it now. Act quick. I don't know how long that code is going to last, but we know right now through today, WCPT 25 with Credo Mobile will get you 25% off for 2 years with Credo Mobile. Want to go back to the phone lines. Keithon was on the line. You want to talk a little bit about the Republican, Democrats, and the shutdown. Keithon, thanks for joining Driving It Home.
Thank you very much, and thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna get quick to the point, and thank you for subbing for Patti Vasquez. Love the show.
Thank you.
Democrats and Republicans, since the Union, the Civil War and all that, they come together. And they've made the biggest decision in their life that made America what it is today. And that was to end slavery, but they had to have something that was going to back the fact that if we end slavery, we have to make people, the incentive for people that will suffer for the ending of slavery to work, to give. So we invented money. We invented currency. We invented dollar bills. Now, according to Republicans, they figure, okay, Republicans are going to replace the slaves. The money is going to replace the slaves on the Republican half. So we need to lock them up. We need to control them, put them in facilities, buy up make sure all the plantations and the properties are owned by the fact that we have enough of these slaves locked up to where we can get what we need to get done. Now, Democrats believe that the slaves should be free to repair the things that they need to see, to build, to prosper, and to benefit others around them, to heal the sick, to do anything, to basically live Christ-like. But because they won't come together, the North and the South won't come together on this one issue, that restitution and I forget what they call it. Not I don't want to use.
You're not talking about reparations.
Reparations. Yeah, I don't want to use reparations, but when they was the Reconstruction.
Okay.
Because they took the money, Republicans took the money and locked it all up. And the Democrats took whatever money they could get from the working class and the poor and the needy and the churches and stuff, and they kept spreading it out there, but it just wasn't enough. So now you have the Southern Republican who the Elm plantation owners families, Kellogg, De Beers, the Europeans that they called over here, who don't understand that's how money rolls. And so they do whatever they want to do with the money. And not realizing that no matter how many slaves you hold, they eventually become warriors. They eventually become enough to pay for the military, enough to pay for people's opinions, enough to change people's opinions, enough to get the information that you need put out there to get the opinions that you need, all to control the vote. But the more money you control, meaning the more slaves you own, the more you get done. And Republicans do not want to release the slaves. They want to control the money as tight as they can get it. But Democrats want the money to be free. They want the money to build America like when you freed the slaves, that we didn't just go out there and just start robbing and stealing and doing everything wrong. We started trying to live the American dream in as far as real slaves go. And everybody forgot about the American slave. They all think about the American the war between the North and the South. They think about the Hatfields and the McCoys, but they don't think about the Black American slave, no matter what culture you're from. You forget that they helped make whatever 1/3 of America is, no matter when you came in. So we were the money, and now that real money has taken our place, they want to control that. And Democrats want that to be free as far as anybody can have the opportunity in America to do this.
Well, thank you for the call, Keith. That's it's a philosophical standpoint, right? The democracy for Democrats, the republic with the centralized government for Republicans, and yeah, I think we've seen just in policy over several decades now that it seems like a reinvestment in infrastructure or spreading wealth, or at least trying to balance out the wealth disparity, has been the object of Democratic leadership or Democratic policy. So thank you for the call, Keith. I'm going to move along here. Before I get to a break, I wanted to hear what Paul from Seattle had to say. He wanted to talk about that ballroom, and I'm sure he's going to set me straight on my thoughts on that. Paul, how you doing?
No, I understand. I understand your thinking on that. I just think that this is not a Halloween trick, and it may be more next year. If the Democrats do not take control of the House, at least the House, in the election next November, be on Tuesday, November 3rd, I think that Trump will probably tear the White House. I think he'll tear it down and build a big, giant palace to himself. Other things he might tear down. He might decide to tear down order that the Capitol be torn down and just say we don't need it anymore. We don't need it anymore. We don't need it.
I would have called you crazy, but I think after January 6, 2021, the respect for that building is completely gone. And the way that without congressional approval, the way he's building that East Ballroom, I could believe you that he would build his own, Trump Tower or Trump Palace or, some sort of upgrade. I just saw that I believe the Lincoln bathroom has been modernized, and it looks just like gaudy and marble and something that you'd see in one of his Atlantic City resorts.
Well, he's already said several times that he thinks the White House is a dump. And if he's going to knock down the East Wing and there's going to be no pushback, this is really about the fact that, first of all, he has no respect for America. He has no respect for the American people. And he's just seeing what he can get.
Oh, you cut off there for a second, Paul. You still with us? And I do not have him. Paul, going once, going twice. I do not have you. Did you mute us? No, I do not. Okay. Well, Paul was rolling there. He's right, though, about, it was without congressional approval. And he thinks that has the power to do this as an executive. But these are institutions. These are things that I don't think the executive branch does have the ability to get without congressional approval. And the ballroom is one thing. I think anything in addition to that is a little much. And I know that you've seen administrations come through, they redecorate, they redo things, but these are like renovations. These aren't, changing out the wallpaper and adding a few knickknacks. This is a big changeover that we're seeing right now. And I think, someone can easily get drunk with power like that if he doesn't get the pushback that he actually does deserve to have. But I'm going to wrap it up on that segment for now. When we get to our next segment, I'm going to talk to Mark Gevaart. He's producer and host of My Labor Radio, an independent community access radio program that airs in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We're going to talk a little bit about labor in general and what's going on in labor news in Indiana. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Paul Chivari filling in.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Partly cloudy tonight with a couple of isolated showers developing. A low temperature of 39 degrees. Chance of showers Saturday, but they'll be rather spotty. We'll see a decent amount of sunshine as well with a high temperature of 49. Sunday sunny with a high temperature of 54. Monday sunshine with a high temperature of 58. Tuesday, lots of sun with a high temperature around 58 degrees. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 52.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter. The Hal Sparks radio program.
We wouldn't even have Tesla if it wasn't for Barack Obama. Obama insisted that there be funding for electric car companies in the rescue package in 2009. And Tesla was the single biggest beneficiary of it because they were further ahead, because Elon Musk had bought Tesla as a company outright and was pretending to run it, as he does right now.
Hal Sparks, Saturdays from 11 to 1 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez, and on this special Halloween edition, you get me. Trick or treat. I hope I'm not the black licorice in your bag right now. I hope I'm something good like a Snickers or a Reese's. But I got a great guest right now. It's Mark Gevaart. He's the host of My Labor Radio, an independent community access radio program, airs every Wednesday on WELT 95.7 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. You're killing it right now, my friend. You're covering. Patty should be nervous. You're killing it right now.
Oh, I could never hold a candle to
You're
Patty.
Right. It sounds good right now.
She's the only person I've ever met in my life that figured out how to get like 30 hours worth of work done in a 24-hour day. She just like runs on just fuel that I don't think any human being could consume.
I don't think she ever stops. You're right, exactly. The sleep is still what she's thinking. The wheels are turning at that same time.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to watch it in action.
Exactly, and you're living it. You're living the dream, and you're sitting right there next to her. So it's got to be high energy.
Oh, totally. It took me like a minute to kind of like get to her pace, because like it would be like 30 seconds to showtime, and I would be like nervous, like, all right, are you ready to go? Do you need anything? What's going on? And she's cool as can be, and then right when the seconds count down to the start of the show, she just gets right on it. So it's unique, it's fascinating to watch, and I've learned a few tricks from her along the ways. But let's talk about you. You've been on this show before. I'm new to what you do here. Tell me a little bit about My Labor Radio and your show and what you guys kind of do.
So I've been around the community access radio station, so it's not a really big deal. There's only 100 watts. You have to really be in your car, but it's also streaming online. So if you're in your car around the downtown area, you can actually hear the station. So I was approached in 2016 when the station kicked off, and someone said, hey, you do labor. Why don't you do a labor show? So I started doing one, and I've been hooked ever since. In 2018, I made it into a podcast. So that's a weekly one. Every Sunday, I release it. So if you search your podcast platforms for My Labor Radio, because I wanted to use the word labor radio in some way, but there wasn't anything available. So for the website, I chose My Labor Radio, and it's working. So we're just going to roll with it. And so really what I do is make sure I take time to talk about the importance of collective bargaining, empowering people in the workplace, working family issues, talk to individuals who are maybe in an apprenticeship program or thinking about getting into it, or journey person that's left that apprenticeship program, women in the trades, things like that. Just a plethora of who's out there in the labor world and what fights we have, because my fight is their fight, it's our fight. So we always have to fight that labor fight together. And you guys in the state of Illinois have it a lot better off than we do for labor in the state of Indiana. Let me just clearly say that right now. We have a 20-year Republican rule here that's taken the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, and they're ready to gerrymander those maps again for the congressional maps is what they're going to try and do, and have a special session kicks off on Monday. We'll probably spend as a state $300,000 to $400,000 for a week of them kicking this around. J.D. Vance even came to the state of Indiana twice in the last month just to try and bend some arms to even get Mike Braun, our governor, to actually make this special session happen. Kind of crazy. It's going to be real interesting where this heads to.
And you were saying we have it good here in Illinois compared to Indiana. Is that just because we're such a pro-union state compared to Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things I look at is how labor is treated. And when Governor Pritzker goes to Springfield to make an announcement about something and ends up choosing an AFL-CIO office to make that press release and press moment happen, you know he's on the right side of the labor. He's standing right there in labor's house. And those are the kind of key things you look for. That would never happen in the state of Indiana. I guarantee it.
I was doing a little bit of research for this, and well, first, before I go into what I was going to say about this report, you were mentioning just recently about how kind of some of the stuff you cover, females in the labor force. And I want to say the most recent episode that I kind of caught a little bit of, you were talking to a female crane operator, I think, on your podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about like some of the guests that you have on like that. I mean, where do you find some of these people, or what kind of entices you, or what kind of excites you about talking to the different people that you talk to in the labor force?
Well, for me, it's the big thing is are they out there on social media? So whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or I find them LinkedIn is another spot too, because I kind of, once I spend time focusing on labor through social media, the algorithm keeps sending me people that do labor things. I'm talking to Jaime Abatea, who's an SEIU member in El Paso, Texas. I wouldn't know him any other way except for social media. So there's no boundaries anymore with social media. It allows us to find these type of folks. And I just want to talk to people about their everyday work life, and knowing that they have collective bargaining agreements and are union members, I share that in common with them. And that's our first step in the direction of having a conversation. In Sammy Kosar's case, she was part of the Trades Women Build Nation thing that just happened in Chicago here at McCormick Place in early September. I think second or third week of September it happened over a weekend. On that Saturday of the weekend that it happened, they had a huge parade where all these sisters, 6,000 women in the trades were there. She was one of them. A friend of mine from Toledo who's there, who's a frost insulator. She and her were talking, and I ended up getting Sammy's information, started communicating with her. And you think about it, she's working on a tower crane. Now you think about a crane, there's a crane that comes down the road on a truck, and that crane has outriggers, and it picks up something off the back of a semi and sets it down at the workplace. Well, that's not building the high-rise buildings. She is a tower crane operator. She's 370 feet in the air. So a very amazing thing to even talk to her about that and how she even got involved with it, things like that. And I find those things fascinating. And I find I got an audience that finds it fascinating too. And it's a breaking barriers type of thing when I'm starting to talk to more women in trades in non-traditional roles. I mentioned during the show there that I had an argument with an IBEW guy who said, "What do you mean there's no," I had stated no jobs have genders. And he got mad at me saying, "Look, I started in the 1970s and there are gender jobs." Oh, so we went round and round with it. Not that we were going to fight over it, but we had a very solid discussion about it. And he disagreed with me completely. And I'm trying to say we shouldn't. Why should we limit anyone? Let's let everybody be a part of this. If the women are there, they're going to pull their weight and do their job. They wouldn't be a journey person if they didn't. So those are the kind of things I do, is try and track down and find folks who are maybe working on an apprenticeship situation like in the state of Illinois. I'm going to be speaking to someone in the next month here about their apprenticeship programs that they're working with operating engineers, LIUNA, the laborers union, AFL-CIO affiliates. and talking to them about what you're doing going into the schools to provide this information, because the guidance counselor doesn't always have, hey, you should join a labor union and here's some things you should think about in a skilled trade of some kind. None of that stuff's ever really discussed like that. So I want to make sure that those things are out there. And I did also realize that as far as niche marketing, in the state of Indiana, I am one of the only people who talks consistently about labor unions and working families and collective bargaining agreements. And so why not just stay in that niche market?
It's a great market to be in. I mean, surprisingly, was it how many percentage of Americans have to work every day? And we don't really have a lot of resources like this where, we can turn to, someone that's out there that's kind of on the ground floor, interviewing the people that are on the front lines for us and kind of talking about their different experiences. We're talking to Mark Gevaart, who is the producer and host of My Labor Radio. Mark, I came across a report from the Indiana Capital Chronicle, and it says that the Indiana workforce system seeks a bigger role in meeting the state's labor needs. And it kind of, what I kind of gathered from that is it doesn't seem like that there's a lot of programs available, readily available to the workforce to try and prepare them for some of these jobs. Is that accurate?
Yeah, very accurate. And that's one of the things that it takes money and it takes resources. And if you think about what's happened over the last 20 years, I mentioned that earlier, is this Republican rule, they're making sure that their friends are getting what they need. But when it comes down to it, those friends are also calling them back out now and saying, hey, I got this business and this company, but I need people who are trained and ready. And you're not helping that with the education system and how you're doing things. So it's great that their friends are calling them out on it. But the other thing about it is the state has to provide that, and they haven't done that over the last 20 years. What does do that? Private entities can't be relied on to be able to do this. There isn't some private company that's making sure that people have computer backgrounds or maybe have some trade, whether it's electrical or carpentry or plumbing or pipe fitting or something like that. They're relying on unions to do it. That's a hard sell for a lot of Republicans. That's a tough pill to swallow for them, that they would think that they have to partner with a labor union in some way, but they are finding the benefits of it. So that's a positive.
And I kind of skipped over this from the beginning. Your involvement with unions. Are you still with the United Auto Workers? Because I know you had an affiliation with them.
Yes. So I'm a United Auto Worker member. I work in a facility that produces full-size pickup trucks for General Motors, and I've done that for over 40 years now. So I'm a very lucky guy to have a job that long and that consistent. But I was lucky enough to walk out of high school into a factory job, didn't know anything about a labor agreement. Within a few years, I'm asking questions, and somebody brought me a contract book. I started reading it and I was like, there's some really cool stuff in here. I didn't know this is for us. And so then I started reading it and immersed myself in it. And here I am today, 40 years later, still yapping about it.
And I loved on your website, the first thing you see is the Weingarten rules. And that was something that was kind of new to me. And especially with someone that actually is in SAG-AFTRA, I didn't realize that I could probably utilize these to my benefit. But could you describe just really quickly a brief synopsis of what the Weingarten rules are for someone that might not know?
So it was a 1970s, had a Supreme Court decision that was Weingarten versus, I don't remember who, but am I not relevant? But your Weingarten rights are that you don't have to answer questions that would change your work situation if you don't have a union representative with you at that time, especially in a union shop. That's a very difficult thing because usually the person who's quizzing you is someone from HR that you may not or have not had a relationship with, or your supervisor. And so you really communicate every day with your supervisor. I'm going to continue talking to him. That's one of those situations where, just like they say, what does the attorney always tell people? When the cops pull you over, shut the F up. That's just what they're trying to tell them to do here too. Just hold on till you have your representative there, because you're entitled to your representative. You don't just wing it and say, I hope I can do this on my own. You don't have a background or experience in that. That's why you need someone who spends their time reading the agreement, understanding what's going on, and seeing what kind of trickery might be thrown down you. And you don't have a lot of experience with that. You want to make sure you get the best attorney you can right then, which is your elected representative in this case, to help you when you're dealing with HR. Your Weingarten rights state that you have a right to that representation in any sit-down type of meeting with HR or your supervisor in any way. You first ask, hey, can I have my union rep here involved? Oh, they won't be necessary. You don't need to. We're just going to talk. First step is thanks. Appreciate you asking me to talk. Get my union rep and we'll have a discussion. Simple as that. And you have that right. A lot of people don't realize that they have that right.
We went from a previous presidential administration in Joe Biden, who was actually on the picket lines during the United Auto Workers strike in 2023, to the Trump administration, which probably is arguably like the least union-friendly administration ever. With the government shutdown aside and how that affects state workers, what is the largest threat to union work right now that we're facing?
The biggest step is the National Labor Relations Board and the National Labor Relations Act. So the National Labor Relations Act is 90 years old now, and the National Labor Relations Board has to have a quorum. Well, since the Trump administration took over, they decimated every piece of that. So if you had an unfair labor practice charge against company A or B and you wanted that to be heard by the labor board, that's not going to get heard right now because there isn't a quorum. There are a couple of Republicans there, but there isn't a quorum that they can even have any vote or push anything. So basically, we have an agency that's supposed to look out for labor that has no teeth, and they threw the dentures out the window. So there's nobody's ever going to bite back down on them.
Before I let you go, in my little prying into your social media presence, I think I noticed you play bass guitar. Is that right? Yeah. Are you currently playing in any bands, or is that just kind of a hobby?
I'm not. I spent 10 years in a cover band, and funny thing about that is that it was two female singers that I knew that I got together, and they sang great together. And I said to them, I said, let's start a band. Both of them at that moment said, no, I don't really want to form a band because I get in a band and some guy will hit on me and we're both married and none of us need that. And I said, here's the deal. I'll run the thing. I'll play bass. And you tell me if somebody does something and I'll fire them immediately. Those sisters jumped on board. And these girls were such amazing singers. They could sing a restaurant menu and you would feel goosebumps. It's amazing stuff. So I found some great musicians to work with. We spent 10 years, 07 to 17, doing a lot of really cool stuff. And being a dickhead union rep, I negotiated some great agreements that got them fed and got them paid. Everybody loved it.
I was just going to say, just in that story, it sounds like you utilized your negotiation skills and your labor experience to kind of work that out for them, in a true sort of collective bargaining sort of way. So that's
we all won. Yes, absolutely. Then they met my wife and they go, yeah, we like this guy because I'm not hitting on him. I don't need that. We need to work together. We found a way to do it. That was what worked.
Oh, that's great. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you on social media? Where's the best way to direct people towards you?
If you just search My Labor Radio, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, or if you're on any of the social medias, I'm on Blue Sky as well, too. So dig us up, find us. You can also find us at mylaborradio.org on the internet, and that has a link to our Listen Now button, and it takes you right to the shows that are there. There's a whole lineup of shows, just like Paul found it. You could find it, too.
All right. He's Mark Gevaart. He joins us on Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. He's the producer and host of My Labor Radio. Mark, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, Paul. It's always great to talk to you.
All right. He's Mark Gevaart. We're coming back with more of Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Paul Chivari filling in just a moment.
This is a WCPT.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Heartland Signal News Minute.
Honestly, when I saw
take care. Thank you.
Reductions in force and firings this past 2 weeks, it left me very confused.
That's Deb Howery, former Chief Medical Officer at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. She resigned in protest after the Trump administration fired CDC Director Susan Moneras in late August. Howery was referring to the latest chaotic round of firings at the CDC, where more than half of the 1,300 jobs cut on October 10th were restored October 11th. Speaking to WCPT's Edwin Eisendrath, Howery said that while the administration has talked about decreasing conflicts of interest at the CDC, they recently fired employees who oversee conflicts of interest.
Similarly, the Institutional Review Board office that protects human subjects in research was fired. So this really leaves CDC hampered.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Andy Miles.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin. And that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversity Beer, Wine, and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine, and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
And it's Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez. She will be back on Monday. I want to thank you all for joining us. 773-763-9278 is the number here where you can call me on the Credo mobile phone and text line. You can also text us. Same number, 773-763-WCPT. We were talking with Mark Gevaart earlier about some of the issues going on in Indiana as well as the United States regarding labor. At the top of the show, I talked a little bit about the government shutdown, what that means for SNAP benefits in Illinois as well as other places. Trump wanting GOP senators to end the filibuster, but the GOP senators saying, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I didn't get to some of our local news where the Illinois General Assembly passed last night a bill to fill a budget gap for public transit, and it sets up the Northern Illinois Transit Authority, which comes as the Rural Transit Authority faced a budget gap of more than $200 million. The state lawmakers approved a $1.5 billion funding plan for public transportation agencies without a large statewide tax increases previously proposed. There will be some tax increases, though, it sounds like, up in some of the northern counties of Illinois that are going to see the benefits of this transit bill. Obviously, the Regional Transit Authority, which is Chicago Transit Authority, Metra, and PACE, yeah, that's going to affect northeastern Illinois, northern Illinois more than it's going to affect the rest of the state. But it passed the House 72-33, and then the Senate sent it back to the House, and it was approved 72-33 at 2:15 a.m. on Friday, with only Democrats supporting the plan. If you want to talk about that, feel free to call in. If not, we were talking about some of the stuff going on at the ICE facility. There was also a lawsuit that was filed where the advocates are alleging that there's inhumane conditions at the Chicago area ICE facility in Broadview. That was filed on Friday. Attorneys with the ACLU of Illinois and the MacArthur Justice Center say U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents have denied people being held at the Broadview facility private calls with attorneys. They've blocked members of Congress from seeing the facility, faith leaders and journalists from entering the building, creating a black box they say has allowed authorities to act with, quote, impunity. Agents have also allegedly coerced people held at the processing center to sign paperwork they don't understand, leading them to unknowingly relinquish their rights and face deportation. Representatives for Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security did not immediately respond to emails from NBC5 talking about this. Alexa Van Brunt, the director of the MacArthur Justice Center of Illinois' office, the lead attorney for the lawsuit said community members are, quote, being kidnapped off the streets, packed in holding cells, denied food, medical care, and basic necessities, and forced to sign away their legal rights. It would be hard to question that. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be just a holding facility, and they weren't prepared to hold the amount of people for the amount of people and the amount of time that they're holding these people. And I think that's just kind of the haphazard way that this administration has gone to deputize this hack group of mercenaries to go on our streets of Chicago and make them considerably worse and more unsafe with some of the practices that they're using. And they're not trained, regardless of your thoughts on ICE, whether they're justified in doing what they're doing. You can tell that they're not trained. They're pulling random people without much experience to be doing this and paying them to be doing this. There's commercials recruiting people to join ICE. They're not grabbing the best and the brightest to be carrying out this stuff. So you have this just rogue bunch of mercenaries that are just grabbing people. And then NBC5 did an investigation, how many ICE detainees really are, quote, the worst of the worst. And going through it, I think they found that only 16% of ICE detainees have any criminal history. So there you go. That's completely against what Trump was promising about a year ago when he said that he was going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and take this call right now because I know exactly who it is. It's Steve from the Gold Coast joining Driving It Home. Steve, thanks for calling in today.
Yes, I'm going to touch on a couple of issues. And yes, I mean, I too find it a little bit disheartening with regard to how they passed this legislation. I mean, I'm for being able to fund what we need in this state, but at the same time, I mean, this idea, I've never liked it at the federal level, the state level, local, anywhere else, when something, sort of gets passed in the middle of the night with an hour or two to look at the final language and, kind of just push something through. So, I mean, like I said, I find it disheartening, but at the same time, I recognize that, look, the state of Illinois and Cook County and the city of Chicago needs this funding. And that means that, that it has to come from somewhere. I mean, I wish that there were a fairy that rained down money upon us and that we could tap into. But the reality is that at least for the foreseeable future, there is no money coming to Illinois from the federal government. And as a matter of fact, if you look at some of the money that was allocated during the Biden administration, that money is being withheld. There was a $1.2 billion project with regard to extending CTA service and so forth to further south and so forth. I mean, that's being held up by this administration. So, like I say, I mean, our problems are ours to solve, and we're going to have to do something about it. And that means somebody's got to pay for it. We are in a deep fiscal hole in this state. Again, we put ourselves here, and I'll be the first to acknowledge that despite being a Democrat, we decided to make promises to a lot of unions, again, at the state, at the county, at the city level, because we knew that we wanted their votes at the time, knowing full well that our children or grandchildren were going to have to bear that burden of having to pay for those promises. And the courts have said that, look, you can't alter pension obligations. So you've got a lot of things that are coming to a head. And let's face it, what happened during COVID was we sort of got a reprieve. We got a lot of money in big cities, and not just Chicago, but all over the country, and states got a lot of infusion of money. And now that money's gone. And so now we're back to where we would have been had COVID not happened. So again, I don't have the answer to what we're going to do, but this issue is not over.
I guess I wanted to get your thoughts, though, on supposedly the gas tax that was enacted a few years ago, which was, according to Governor Pritzker, was going to be specifically for just roads and transit in the state. Now some of those funds being redirected towards this bill to try and make up for the budget shortfall and not, add a new tax, on top of that. What were your thoughts on that? I mean, is that something that you think is just fine and ethical, or is that something where it's like they really should have stuck to what they said originally when they passed that tax a few years ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I mean, they needed to come up with something to fund this. There's going to be an increase for suburbanites, for instance, in the surrounding areas in terms of people come and go out of Chicago relative to tolls. And they're going to see a huge increase up to 40%, as I understand it, because of this bill, and that's going to go to then shore up, the shortfall here. Is it fair? I mean, it depends on where you sit, I guess, in terms of where you stand on these issues. Like I said, they had to come up with it from somewhere. Was it always going to be? Was their intent that those funds that you were talking about be actually allocated in the way that they intended? Or is this something that, well, okay, yeah, we intended it at the time, but now, look, we're heading for a wall. we've got to do something, and we can't always keep our promises. Does it fall into that category? I don't know. I know that Chicago is the economic engine of the state of Illinois and the Midwest, really. And without mass transit, what happens to the city? And again, we're looking at several years in which nothing is going to come from Washington, unlike other administrations where you could at least count on some funds coming. I mean, this administration, I will argue, is targeting cities like Chicago, blue cities specifically in blue states. So, our problems are our own, and it's going to be some tough choices coming up.
Well, Steve, thank you for the call and your thoughts on that. Of course, he's talking about that transit bill that was passed overnight here in the state of Illinois. We are done with hour one of Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Paul Chivari filling in. Coming up in hour two, I've got guest Jen Golbeck talking about some of the extremism on the right, as well as a recent court case that she wanted to talk about that she testified in. We're also going to talk to Reed Showalter, candidate for Congress in the 7th District of Illinois, as well as Neil Khot, candidate for Congress in the 8th District of Illinois. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Paul Chivari filling in.
You've still got it, but your immune system weakens as you age, making it hard to fight the flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Sponsored by Pfizer.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. President Trump's declining to clarify if the U.S. will conduct tests of its nuclear weapons. Ed Donahue has the latest.
It's been more than 30 years since the last U.S. test of a nuclear weapon. The president seemed to suggest it could happen soon in a social media post.
You'll find out very soon, but we're going to do some testing, yeah.
On Air Force One, the president wouldn't elaborate when asked if he means to resume underground nuclear detonation tests.
Other countries do, and if they're going to do it, we're going to do it.
Okay, you can't clarify whether you will resume.
I'm not going to say yes.
The president has talked about resuming nuclear warhead tests on an equal basis with Russia and China, but their last known tests were in the 1990s. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth seemed to indicate to reporters the intent was to test warheads when he said resuming testing would be pretty responsible. Ed Donahue, Washington.
The UN Human Rights Chief is calling for an investigation into U.S. military strikes against boats allegedly carrying illegal drugs in the waters off South America. Ravina Shamdasani, spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Over 60 people have reportedly been killed in a continuing series of attacks carried out by U.S. armed forces against boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific since early September, in circumstances that the UN Human Rights Chief says find no justification in international law. These attacks and their mounting human cost are unacceptable.
2 federal judges have ruled the Trump administration must continue to fund the SNAP food aid program during the government shutdown. Payments were due to be halted tomorrow. Republican Senate leaders quickly rejected President Trump's call today to scrap the filibuster and reopen the government. And the FBI says multiple people have been arrested in Michigan for allegedly plotting a violent attack over the Halloween weekend. Sources tell AP it's believed to have been inspired by Islamic State extremism. This is AP News. Hi, Panjwani on the dangers of being a school crossing guard.
For Dawn Lee, the dangers she faces on the job are impossible to miss.
Basically, we're just out there putting our life in jeopardy for $16 an hour.
Crossing guards are key to ensuring kids get to school safely, but that job is often done by putting their own safety at risk. With inadequate safety measures and limited accountability for drivers, the responsibility isn't just dangerous, but at times fatal.
The main thing is the safety with the speeders.
Travis Callis was a crossing guard in Martinsburg, West Virginia. He says while he's never been hurt by speeding drivers, he's had several close run-ins.
It's almost common enough that it's a joke. I'm in the street and they just drive through.
Lee and Callis say they'll report these instances to their schools or police departments. But Lee says,
they don't really say much. Thank you. We'll take care of it. Anything to appease you.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
There's more news at apnews.com. I'm Ben Thomas. Thanks for listening.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Partly cloudy tonight with a couple of isolated showers developing. A low temperature of 39 degrees. Chance of showers Saturday, but they'll be rather spotty. We'll see a decent amount of sunshine as well with a high temperature of 49. Sunday sunny with a high temperature of 54. Monday, sunshine with a high temperature of 58. Tuesday, lots of sun with a high temperature around 58 degrees. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 52.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. Captain Hugh Mulzack's love for the sea started after he finished high school as he served the British Sooners and in 1918 immigrated to the United States. Within 2 years of joining the Marines, Mulzack earned his Shipping Master Certificate, the first African American to do so. In 1921, Mulzack was promoted to the rank of captain. In 1942, the SS Booker T. Washington, the first ship to be named after an African American, was created, and Mulzack was offered the position of captain, but he turned it down at first as the Marines did not want to have an integrated crew. Mulzack stood firm on his beliefs, stating, "Under no circumstances will I command a Jim Crow," and Mulzack became the first African American captain of the first ever integrated crew. Under Captain Mulzack, over 18,000 troops were sent to the European war front, and ships carrying tanks, aircrafts, and ammunition to United States troops in World War II. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
It's Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez today. Happy Halloween. It's either a trick or a treat for you, depending on your opinion of me, if you even had one today. But Patti will be back on Monday. I want to thank everybody listening here, of course, WCPT 820 Heartland Signal in Chicago, Alternative Talk KKNW in Seattle, 1150 AM, and of course, AM 950 Progressive Minnesota, who joins us this hour. And also joining us this hour, I've got Jen Golbeck. She's a professor, a computer scientist, a psychologist, an expert in the far-right online extremism, AI, and bad things on the internet. She's also the author of the Substack MAGAReport. She joins us right now. Jen, thank you so much for joining the program.
Hey, glad to be with you.
So I kind of saw beforehand there was a really interesting court case that sounded like it wrapped up this week, in which it sounded like a man was kind of saying on his social media, kind of calling for violence to happen against the president, and the Justice Department was trying to just prosecute him, but essentially he gets acquitted because of it'd be like a First Amendment violation. Why don't you? I mean, I'm giving a bad synopsis of it here, but why don't you kind of give us the bullet points of this case?
Yeah. So Peter Stinson is the man in this case. He was in the Coast Guard for most of his career. Definitely not a fan of Trump. And going back to 2020, was really talking about, we have a fascist in office. What are we going to do? The only way fascists get out is violence. We can try to impeach him. The assassination attempt in Butler last year happens, and he's doing a lot of posting. That guy needed to train more, should have been 3 inches to the right. Somebody needs to do this. Somebody needs to take out the president, which are not things that I would advise anyone to post on social media. But they stayed up there. They weren't violations of the terms of service. These are absolutely protected First Amendment statements. You are allowed to wish for the death of elected officials. You're allowed to say that you would like other people to kill them. If you go farther than that, you can get in trouble. Nothing really happened to him for a long time. And in February of this year, end of February, he decided he was going to start this protest movement that's called May Day. It's still going on, though the name has changed, in DC, to basically peacefully protest, get people to go talk to their members of Congress to advocate for Trump to get impeached. They got a permit to protest on the National Mall. They're now outside Union Station in DC. And after he applied for that permit, they seemed to dig around in his socials and find these tweets. They charged him originally with making threats, and then they changed that just based on the tweets to solicitation of murder of the president, which is a pretty shocking charge for someone who's just kind of posting when he's mad that he really hopes the president dies. So he got charged with that in June. The trial was Monday and Tuesday of this week. And of course, solicitation of murder is usually like you're hiring a hitman to kill somebody. It's not that you're just tweeting. The government's argument seemed to basically come down to some crazy person could have read this and then decided to kill the president. I testified in the case that this is really common language on the left and the right. I have seen plenty of tweets from people saying that shooter should have been 3 inches to the right. I've seen, if we look back a few years, lots of people tweeting Fauci needs to hang during COVID, or, we saw all of the Biden stuff in the election, pictures of Biden tied up in people's cars, calls from the right on, all these Democrat traitors need to be hanged. So my argument was basically like, people say stuff like this all the time. And if this counts as solicitation of murder, there are like several million more people who are going to be charged with solicitation of murder. Fortunately, I think for First Amendment issues, he was found not guilty and he is back out. He literally left the courtroom at 6 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon and went back out and joined the protest group at Union Station.
Oh, wow. And I just wanted to highlight that it seemed like specifically in this case, then it wasn't the fact that he himself was threatening the president. He was just calling for somebody to threaten the president, in which they kind of focused in on that, right? It's as long as he's not making threats himself that he's going to carry out this, that's kind of why this was protected speech, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, he was originally charged with making threats, and I'm not a lawyer, right? But I could sort of see how you could interpret those tweets as threats. I still think it would have been going too far. But then to change it to solicitation of murder, right? Like, that's exactly what you think it is from watching TV, right? That like, you want somebody to kill this guy, and he probably did. But then you have to solicit them, right? Which means you're going to pay them money or whatever. You kidnap a member of their family and say, if you don't kill the president, I will kill your loved one, or something like that, right? There has to be like something you're doing to get somebody to do it. And just yelling out, actually on Blue Sky is where like the the post in question was, like, that doesn't count, right? Just like you just tweeting something isn't solicitation of murder like we all think of it, like hiring a hitman. And I think that's why he got off. Like, he said, look, I don't have the skills to do this, but somebody should. But, he didn't try to find anybody to do it. He didn't like buy weapons or buy crypto or go on the dark web. All, at least from what the government presented in court, the only thing they presented were social media posts. And so even though he said it a whole bunch of times, that's still protected speech.
I guess this is kind of on brand, though, for the Trump administration and his lackeys to kind of take one small thing and amplify it and take advantage of something. I guess I think of it as like the Insurrection Act and how the president's trying to use that right now as a justification for some of the stuff that he's carrying out with ICE and all of that sort of stuff. And I guess I wanted to leap off to that because, your expertise is in right-wing extremism. I mean, does that feel on brand to you that it's just these tiny little, I guess, like minute sort of things that you wouldn't think a person would be kind of getting in trouble for, or something that wouldn't be looked at in that sort of lens would then be taken by the administration being like, oh, no, he is trying to kill the president. Oh, no, they are trying to bring immigrants in this country to take down the country from the inside out. It just seems like this administration is taking any sort of minor detail or old law and trying to twist it into a modern day justification. I don't know.
Yeah,
Am I off on that? I guess. I don't know.
I think that's exactly right. And, this was a wild case to me, and that's why I testified in it, that you could take these statements, which like are inflammatory, like you can absolutely see why someone would object to them, but don't at all rise to the level of solicitation of murder. We're going to twist it to say that like something far more sinister is going on here. And that's what Trump has seen with these, the deployment of the National Guard, saying that there's an insurrection and it's like a dude in a frog costume, standing outside an ICE facility, protesting peacefully. And the judges have been making those rulings saying, these statements are kind of untethered from reality. But they're trying really hard. And I see this in the sort of very extreme MAGA spaces that I monitor online, that they'll take anything that sort of goes against Trump, right? Anybody that disagrees with him, and try to twist it into this is treason and you should hang for that. They're all very pro First Amendment if it's stuff that they want to say, but anybody who opposes Trump, they really turn it into, these people need to be taken out of office. If they're a legislator or a judge, they need to be put in prison. They need to be executed. Like the rhetoric in those really hardcore MAGA spaces gets quite extreme if somebody goes against Trump.
Well, I think we saw that with the death of Charlie Kirk, how it was such a drastic difference in reaction from the right compared to when, the name's slipping me now, but the woman, the Minnesota legislator that died earlier this year when she was murdered, it was a far different reaction from the right when she died. But then when Charlie Kirk gets murdered, it's, anybody that dares say anything against him, it was like almost like a witch hunt to find anything that anybody posted about that.
Yeah, they set up a database, right, of people who had said things that they considered uncharitable, including people who just posted Charlie Kirk's own quotes with no commentary. They sort of demanded this. A thing that I've been thinking a lot about in this space, if I can go a little academic for a second, is this really beautiful study that just came out. That the question in the study was like, why do people believe things that are provably false, right? Like misinformation that's obviously not true. So we could think about Trump saying he had the biggest crowd ever at his first inauguration. Like, obviously not true. You just have to look at two pictures and know that that's false. Why do people say they believe in that? And these researchers are like political psychologists, and they found that people do it because if believing the truth makes their side look weak, then they say, well, if I reject the truth and believe this lie, it's a symbolic sign of the strength of our side. And if you fall into that mentality, like the more wild and out there the things are that you say or say you believe in, like the more incorrect they are, the stronger you feel it makes you look. And it's a thing that, like, once I read that paper, I'm like, that's a lot of what's going on here. It explains a lot of what Trump himself is doing when he says these things. He has the greatest poll numbers of all time, like just patently untrue. But if you think, oh, rejecting the truth makes me look stronger, and my supporters also think that way, then you go, oh, now I understand why he's doing it. And I think that explains a lot of this. On the left, like, we have such a tendency to try to like compromise and like base everything in the truth and have these big, long discussions that can be a little frustrating. But we look at the right and we say, but these things you're saying are inconsistent, right? You make fun of those Minnesota legislators who died, but we just say, like, Charlie Kirk said that people would die of gun violence and it was okay. We just point out he said that, and then you should be fired, right? Those things aren't consistent, but they're not interested in consistency. What they're interested in is looking strong. And I think this academic research was a really interesting like start of getting some insight into why that's happening.
And speaking of academics, just kind of doing a little bit of research on you. Is it true that you're a Crystal Lake Central graduate?
I sure am. Yeah, I grew up in Crystal Lake, and then I went to the University of Chicago for undergrad and master's too. So
I have at least like that in common with you, where I'm from Cary, so I'm a Cary Grove graduate, so a little bit of like the District 155 rivalry there. But as far as academics, it ends there for me because I'm like a state school dropout after that. But I just thought that was interesting when I was researching you that you're from the Crystal Lake area, so it's nice to see someone local do good.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm coming back this weekend. Tomorrow I'm going to be out doing some photojournalism in Broadview at the ICE facility. So if anybody's out there, come find me and say hi. And when you say photojournalism, like what you're just kind of be looking for kind of some of the stuff that's being reported or whatever you can kind of catch out there. What exactly are you looking for while you're out there? Yeah, I started last year going to Trump rallies because so much of my like academic research is online, and I wanted to be like, what are people doing in person? And so I have this sort of like quarter of my life that I spend doing journalism, both taking pictures, like doing documentary photography and talking to people. And, now I find like going to these protests around ICE are really interesting because it's where so much of the rhetoric is happening. So much of the far right stuff is like those communities are now really focused on immigration issues because Trump has made it his issue. So looking at like, what does that look like with people who are protesting? It's such organic movements. I think of it as really colorful. It's very handmade. And then you have this like very mechanized kind of dark state action that I've seen over and over. I've been out to LA, seen it, in DC, certainly. It'll be interesting to see what goes down tomorrow at Broadview, and just kind of document like, what does that look like? And, over time, what is that whole protest movement going to look like over the course of this year?
Before I let you go, you talk about going to these Trump rallies, going up there to see the ICE facility, kind of embedding yourself in what the far right is thinking and doing. At what point, though, like, do you have to, like, you have to, I would imagine, keep like a poker face going on at all times or keep your emotions in check? It's got to be hard. I mean, I don't think I could last more than a few seconds at a Trump rally without getting really upset at some of the stuff being said and done there. How do you do it? What advice do you have for people to kind of keep it in check when these things are happening?
I go in, I was worried about this too. But if you go in with no agenda to make your own points, and I will say nobody listened to anything I said. I really got to talk when I would talk to people. I'd ask them a question and they would just talk at me for half an hour, 45 minutes. But if you go in with a genuine curiosity of like, how are they thinking? What's going on? Like, what is in their head? Treat it as, like I do, as this sort of sociological, anthropological research piece. Like, you just want to hear what they have to say. It's a little bit easier to do, right? I heard a lot of really violent, awful things, but I wanted to hear what they were thinking. And so that was interesting. And as long as I was like, I don't want to engage and talk to you about what I think or why you're wrong, I just want to hear what you think, that makes it a little easier. I tried very hard. I mean, I had lunch with some of these people and I was never actually able to have a conversation that was productive with like the really hardcore far right people, but I keep trying.
Well, bless you for doing that, and keep fighting the good fight, and good luck this weekend, covering the ICE facility in Broadview.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jen, for joining the program. That is Jen Golbeck. She's a professor, computer scientist, psychologist, and author, joining Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez, Paul Chivari filling in. Coming up, we got Reed Showalter and Neil Khot. Stay tuned. More Driving It Home coming up.
A Better Life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
I spend a lot of time thinking about the bad information and even worse advice that some people get when they scroll social media. Usually I'm focused on things like vaccines and medications and supplements, but there was this recent study out of Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine that really got my attention. The skincare routines being served up to teens on TikTok. The study found that many of the products contain potentially irritating active ingredients that carry a risk of developing skin allergies and increased sun sensitivity. The dermatologists we spoke to about this were very clear. Most kids who are not dealing with acne need nothing more than a gentle cleanser with no active ingredients, paired with a fragrance-free moisturizer and a daily mineral screen. They don't need all those anti-aging products. They're just teenagers. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, helping you live a better life.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete.
And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
From city streets to political beats, you're driving it home with Patti Vasquez. Your progressive talk fuels the ride.
Well, it's Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez today on Halloween. She will be back on Monday. But if you're really missing Patti, you can listen to, rate, and share the Driving It Home full episodes and featured interviews podcasts. They're both available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Search for Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez or visit our brand new podcast page at heartlandsignal.com/podcasts. Recent additions to the featured interviews podcasts are Dylan Blaha, candidate for Congress in the 13th District of Illinois, Chicago Deputy Mayor of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights, Beatriz Ponce de Leon, Nathan Taylor of Election Truth Alliance, Pennsylvania State Rep and DNC Vice Chair Malcolm Kenyatta, Illinois State Rep Cam Buckner, who was actually very instrumental in that passage of the bill last night for the transit, the $1.5 billion transit bill in the General Assembly, and Chicago Alder Jesse Fuentes, who you've seen in the news being detained and violently detained by ICE just about a month or two ago at a hospital when she was checking on one of her constituents. I also wanted to mention that tomorrow on Edwin Eisendrath's show, we're rebranding Edwin's show. It was formerly the Big Picture. I think tomorrow we're going to start calling it It's the Democracy Stupid. It's at least the name of his Substack. So that's the route that we're going with Edwin's show. It's still going to be on Saturdays 1 to 4 right here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and tune in. And you're not going to want to miss his episode tomorrow because he's got former chair of the Democratic Party, Jamie Harrison, as well as David DeWitt from the Ohio Capitol, the journal and editor there, and Sky Perryman, the president and CEO of Democracy Forward, as well as Tim Dickinson, the senior politics writer at Rolling Stone, where he reports on the intersection of extremism and electoral politics. We talked a little bit today about the government shutdown, how we've reached day 31 of the shutdown, and how President Trump is calling on GOP senators to eliminate the filibuster with the nuclear option. We talked about how a Rhode Island federal judge ruled that the Department of Agriculture must distribute SNAP benefits to recipients as soon as possible, and another judge ruled that withholding the SNAP benefits was illegal. We talked about that General Assembly here in Illinois passing the $1.5 billion transit bill overnight. We also talked about how Governor Pritzker is trying to extend those SNAP benefits for those of us in Illinois that have those benefits and are worried about them lapsing. Coming up in the next segment, I'm going to be talking to Reed Showalter. He's a candidate for Congress in the 7th District of Illinois. That's the one that Danny Davis is going to be vacating as he's not running for re-election in 2026 after 30 years of service. And then we're going to be talking to Neil Khot, but not so much about his candidacy for Congress in the 8th District, the one that's going to be left open by Raja Krishnamurthy, who's going to be on the ballot running for Senate in the Democratic primary. But Neil Khot wants to talk about a reward that he and Danny Davis announced for help in finding a young woman missing since October 17th. If you want to give us a call here, the number is 773-763-9278. It's 773-763-WCPT. You can text us as well. We've had some people chiming in on the text line from the 646 out in New York. Someone asking, did they get the folks who rolled out the gallows to the Capitol on January 6th yelling, hang Mike Pence? And agreeing with Jen Golbeck that facts be damned, MAGA do not care about facts. So, yeah, you can chime in like that caller as well. Or like Jill in Evanston, who is updating us, saying that in Skokie, Timber Ridge Magnet School is the Spanish immersion program, so should be Hispanic parents there. They're very heavy here today, the ICE involvement there. She's by the high school. She also said that we're getting lots of kids in Evanston tonight trick-or-treating, so another ICE, we're not scared. ICE and the helicopter was over here today, so glad the kids are out mostly with their parents. So saying that despite the presence of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the kids are still out and about enjoying the holiday. Despite the fact that the governor wanted ICE to stay away and let us enjoy our holiday here in the state, they continue to terrorize us and stop our good times and our good fun. So if you want to chime in and let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods, we would really appreciate the self-reporting, because we all got to do this together. It makes me think of back during the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings, when they were trying to find the two brothers that were the attackers in the month or the week-long pursuit. I remember there was like a shootout on this street in Boston between these two brothers and the cops, and there was a guy on Skype reporting live to NBC News from his apartment, just with his laptop, kind of showing what was going on and talking about what was going on. And that's, in my opinion, real journalism in this day and age, is when we can kind of all inform each other and be there for each other, because we have the technology to self-report and put that all out there. But that's my little soapbox. We're going to get to a break here. It's Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Paul Chivari filling in. Want to thank everyone listening on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal right here in Chicago, Alternative Talk KKNW in Seattle, and of course AM 950 Progressive Minnesota. Back with more in just a moment with Reed Showalter.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Partly cloudy tonight with a couple of isolated showers developing. A low temperature of 39 degrees. Chance of showers Saturday, but they'll be rather spotty. We'll see a decent amount of sunshine as well, with a high temperature of 49. Sunday sunny with a high temperature of 54. Monday sunshine with a high temperature of 58. Tuesday, lots of sun with a high temperature around 58 degrees. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 51.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting.
58% of U.S. employees report having a chronic physical health condition, but most keep it a secret.
The problem is the way that we talk about health is we tend to blame the patient. It's one of the few places where we can blame someone who has a disease and somehow that's okay. You have diabetes because you didn't eat right or you didn't exercise, when it has a lot to do with our genetics and where we live and the environments that we're exposed to.
Brian Castrucci, president and CEO of the de Beaumont Foundation, has advice for employers.
You need to really look at the policies at your workplace, because if you work at a workplace where you can't manage your chronic illness, then work could be killing you. No one benefits when we're not actually managing disease appropriately, and more importantly, it'll cost the employer money in the future when you're dealing with employees who have much more complex, much more advanced disease.
With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart. Every year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877. The goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter pet allows shelters to help more animals awaiting care. Please consider adopting today and take some time to learn more about American Humane's other work at americanhumane.org.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez here on this Halloween. Patty's going to be back on Monday. She's going to be talking to comedians Evie Cato and Soli Santos. And I'll later in the show get to a little bit about what we're doing on the other shows this week on WCPT 820. But right now, I've got a guest that's running for Congress in the 7th District of Illinois. That's currently held by Danny Davis, who's not going to seek re-election after 30 years serving the district. It's Reed Showalter, who joins a list of candidates, quite the who's who, and who's running for this open spot right now, as everyone's kind of fighting for that very unique congressional congressional seat. Reed lives in the West Loop with his wife and his 2 dogs. He was born and raised in Oak Park, where his parents ran small businesses. He grew up watching them work hard, take risks, and give back to their community. But when his dad lost his job in the 2008 financial crash, he had to start over as a handyman and built a contracting business from scratch. And at his side, Reed learned how to paint a room, install a toilet, and build a deck. But later on, he earns a degree from New York University. He works in financial regulation at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, going after traders that gambled with people's livelihoods. During law school, he worked at Chicago Legal Aid, defending people's right to housing. After graduating from Columbia, he worked in Congress on the Judiciary Committee staff. He continued working in public service as an attorney at the Federal Trade Commission, a counsel in the U.S. Justice Department, and a senior policy advisor in the White House National Economic Council. He's an anti-monopoly attorney, and he joins us right now on Driving It Home. Reed, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Reading that background of yours, it's really unique in the sense that it seemed like your parents are very kind of working class, and you've got at least sort of that experience kind of being raised by them, but then kind of branching off into your experience working in government and law. Describe how your experience is going to help you be a candidate with a lot of appeal to people in this district.
Yeah, the thing that I am really thankful about for my upbringing is it allowed me to watch what is supposed to be the American dream, the thing that I think has been slipping away for people for a really long time. I watched what happened as my parents were able to sort of grab the ladder of economic mobility and make things work for themselves and set themselves up and me and my brother up for a better life, a life that was better than what they had the opportunities for. And one of the things that continues to inspire the service that I've been in and the run that I'm doing right now is trying to make sure that that opportunity doesn't disappear. And I think everywhere we look, there's an affordability crisis. There is sort of this crushing weight of giant, either powerful companies or government far away, ripping away the opportunities that make it possible for people to make a better life for themselves and their kids. And this is the thing that we need to protect if we want America to be a place that's worth living in.
So what made you want to jump into the political arena?
It's a great question. And it's one of the things that I think several of the candidates in this race have been wrestling with too. I jumped in because I think we have a 5-alarm fire in basically every sector of American politics right now. We are facing interrelated crises that make people's lives worse. Housing, healthcare, and food are crazy expensive. I talk to people every day who are facing really gut-wrenching decisions, whether they can afford food for themselves or for their kids, whether they're going to be able to pay for the medical procedure for their parent or their loved ones, whether they're going to have to move out of the city because they can't afford to stay in the city that they were raised in and their parents were raised in. And to me, that is a story that isn't freedom. That's not the type of America I want to live in. And I've spent my entire professional life fighting to make sure that life is more affordable, that people have the freedom to maneuver, they have the freedom to actually reach the American dream. And I think if we're going to get through this, we need to do more as Democrats than just be the opposition party, which we obviously have to do. We also need to have a real exciting, meaningful affirmative vision for what we're going to do with power when we take Congress, the Senate, and the presidency back.
Describe the 7th district of congressional district of Illinois in your own words.
Yeah, the 7th district is it's amazing. It looks like America. It's the district I grew up in. It's where I want to spend all my time. And it is as diverse as you get in every possible way. It includes like the downtown, the Loop, it's skyscrapers, it's Millennium Park, it's the Sears Tower. And then it goes all the way out to the west side to Oak Park River Forest, out to Westchester. And then we have parts of the south side, South Loop and Chinatown, Bridgeport. It's a fabulously diverse district. It is the engine of Chicago, and it is the place that has sort of birthed the swagger of Chicago. And I think it's the place that we should sort of have a root for a Midwest populism that really delivers for people.
Could you kind of give me like a highlight from your career as an antitrust attorney, or just some of your previous experience, kind of one of your favorite sort of moments that you want to highlight and let us know about? Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's one one of the things that is great about this kind of work is you get to use the law to do something that it very, very rarely does, which is stand up against really powerful interests on behalf of the little guy. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing when I was at the DOJ and the White House was being a part of the cases or being a part of the federal regulatory actions that make it possible for people to have a more affordable, have a more economically empowered life. So one of the things that I worked on, for example, at the White House was stopping big landlords from colluding to raise rents for people. In Chicago specifically, there are some big companies that collude to raise the price of rent for a renter by about $476 a year. And one of the things that we were able to do when we were in power was take on these companies and make sure that they are not able to price gouge people and raise rents in an already very scarce housing insecure environment.
I kind of lost my spot here. We're talking to Reed Showalter, candidate for Congress in the 7th District of Illinois. Reed, I was looking at some of the, what's reported out there, and it was kind of talking about, cash on hand and how much people have fundraised, and that's always kind of the biggest part of this process and the election cycle. And it seems like, while there's a lot of big campaigns out there, yours is rivaling some of these big campaigns with your financial what you've accrued so far. Kind of tell me the little process here about like what you've done to fundraise and some of the support that you have at your grassroots level.
Yeah, we've been really excited to see how much of a grassroots response there's been to a campaign like this. We are not, I'm not a politician. This is my first time running for anything. I'm a career public servant, but I've done it as a career guy. I have been in this work because I care about it. And to show up and be able to fundraise and sort of keep pace with the people who have been a part of whatever the political machine here in Chicago is for several decades is it's a real honor. And we've been excited to see the community sort of show up for that. Just to put it in context, we announced our campaign about 2 weeks before our fundraising cycle and raised about as much as a lot of our peer candidates were able to do in just 2 weeks out of that 3-month period. And it's done because there are people that care about this. There are people that want some energy here. They want a new vision. And I can't say that I am the only person ever to deliver a new vision, but I can say that I'm here to be as forward-looking and energetic and progressive as possible in this. And I think people are resonating with that. I think more generally, the grassroots donors see what is possible when they pitch in early to make these types of candidacies work. It's how you get someone like an AOC or a Graham Plattner or a Zohra Mamdani. It's not the last phase of that campaign. It's, you pick up someone that seems like they're resonating with your values early and you pitch in where you can. And we've been really, really thankful and excited to see people resonating with our campaign.
When you look at who you're up against in the Democratic primary, it's a lot of people that are perennial candidates, people that have had long careers in politics in this state. How are you going to separate yourself from some of these other candidates?
Yeah, it's a great question. I will say at the outset, there are a lot of really great public servants in this race, and I am tremendously thankful and honored to be a part of a race with them who have been doing really great work. I will say, I think right now is a time for new leadership. There are a lot of problems that have been going on in both the district and nationally, and the status quo, frankly, isn't going to cut it. The reason I'm running is because I think I have a new vision here. I think I'm presenting something that is bold and progressive and energetic, and that is what the times call for. But I'll also say I have spent several years in federal public service, and when we put people in Congress, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, we have a lot of crises going on, and there's not a lot of time to learn how the federal version of this system works. We need people who are going to be able to jump in and hit the ground running on day one. And I've done that work. I worked in Congress. I worked in legislative affairs at the Department of Justice, and I will be ready both on day one with the know-how to get it done, but also the energy and the progressive vision to really deliver something for the district.
All right, so let's say you get elected, you're sworn into the next Congress, and you can wave a magic wand and get that first thing done that you want to get done. What's your first priority if you become our congressperson?
I mean, if I can wave a magic wand, the thing we need to do is fix our politics. And that means money out of politics, unrigging the gerrymandering, unmaking the sort of political corruption of our process, because that is the first order of business before we can get to work serving the American people for all of the serious problems that the district and the country is facing. I think after we get a handle on that, obviously we need to tackle the affordability crisis, housing, healthcare, food, the things that make people's lives unaffordable. That's how we get back into a place where people aren't facing scarcity and they are less likely to turn around and say, the reason why things are going wrong in my life are because of the people that don't look like me or talk like me. We should make sure that we are delivering on those kitchen table issues.
Are you willing to take a call from one of our listeners right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go to Jeff from South Elgin. He says he has a question for Reed. Jeff, what's on your mind?
Hey, sorry because I'm out of your district, but I feel like in Illinois politics, people outside of Chicago.
Oh, we lost you, Jeff. Oh, there we are. Okay, you cut out.
No surprise. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry to be out of the district. I know people all over and downstate have lots of things to say about Chicago politics. You talked about antitrust and potentially monopolies. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how he's not part of the Democratic machine or the Democratic system that we have in place, and he's an outsider, because that concerned me a lot with Danny Davis's career. And people lose that drive or lose that fire, I feel like, the longer they're in politics. And it's more about campaigning and less about delivering on those. And I'm also curious, Sam, that you were talking about what his list of priorities are once he hits the ground, because there's so many things going on, and we need Democratic representation that can both walk and chew gum at the same time, basically.
Thank you, Jeff. Reed?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeff. And first off, I forgive you for being out of district. You're welcome to move. It is the best district in Illinois. But yes, great questions. We can sort of take them in turn. The first on that is monopoly power. This is the thing that I think has been missing from a lot of our conversations more generally. We look around and wonder why we're getting ripped off, why our government isn't delivering, why everything gets more expensive, and why it feels like everywhere you look, you don't really have power to do anything. And I think the core reason for that, and one of the things that I've dedicated my career in public service to, is that we have a bunch of giant companies, multinational corporations, who can call all of the shots, and that we have turned our government into a system that is designed to serve them rather than serving regular people. One of the beautiful things about antitrust law is it allows you to sort of directly go after that. I've been a part of many of the biggest cases in this country suing to break up giant monopoly power, and I think we need more of that, not just in antitrust law, but in our politics more generally. The core mission of our politics should be to deliver for regular people, not sort of a slot machine designed to just print out more money and more privilege for the giant companies. On the priorities in Congress, I think you will hear a lot of the same thing that I've been talking about right now. The priorities that I want to hit are making sure that our Congress is delivering for people. And I think the way we do that is to sort of reestablish our ability to have government that doesn't just subsidize markets when they're broken, but acts and does things on behalf of people. For example, we have a real housing crisis, and it's because we don't have enough housing that's being built. There's no reason why we should expect that the only way to solve that is to hope that the private market is going to ride to our aid. We can fund and build housing ourselves and sell it at cost for people so that you can afford a starter home or a basic home to live in without breaking the bank. All of this sort of throughout the chain is a really important part of reinvigorating a government that delivers for people, that's worth believing in, and that doesn't face the type of sort of reactionary feeling that we need to cut government or put an authoritarian in office who will play games and burn the whole system to the ground.
And Reed, before I let you go, your experience is very impressive. It sounds like you're a very busy person, but what about you? What about what you do on your time? What is something that Reed Showalter likes to do for recreation?
Yeah, I've never been the most coordinated sport player. When I was younger growing up, my parents' dreams of me being a baseball player were dashed when I got hit in the face several times by the ball they threw to me. But I have picked up in the last 10 years or so, I've become a pretty avid climber. So the few times when I can step away from the campaign trail, you'll find me climbing either around the district or if you want to join me, you can see me on the walls at Brooklyn Boulders down in the West Loop.
Thank you so much, Reed, for joining the program. We look forward to hearing you down the road.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
That's Reed Showalter. He is running for Congress in the 7th District of Illinois. Got to take a break here on Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. Paul Chivari filling in. Coming up next, we got Neil Khot.
What comes of all of this chaos? Because look, it's fun to watch. It's interesting to watch as they're literally, falling on their face. What does it mean to us? How bad does it get for us? We, the working people of this country, who honestly don't have the kind of wealth to weather a storm, the ones who are going to probably lose our homes, to people like Donald Trump, who does have the wealth to weather the storm, or at least the credit.
The Rick Smith Show, weeknights at 7 on WCPT 820.
After my wife died, I felt like I lost everything, including my love of fishing. But one day, my granddaughter called, and I realized I still had a lot to look forward to. I got referred to a psychiatrist who explained depression can happen to anyone. Getting help doesn't make me weak. It makes me stronger. I just wish it made me better at fishing.
Mental health care is working for Diego. See what it can do for you at mentalhealthcareworks.org. A message from the American Psychiatric Association Foundation.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Union Strong Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversity Beer, Wine and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
No detours, no distractions, just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
And it's Paul Chivari filling in for Patti Vasquez, who will be back on Monday. She's off for the Halloween festivities that she has going on in her world. So trick or treat, you get me today. But a real treat for us today is the fact that we get Neil Khot joining the program again. If you remember, he was on Patti's show a couple weeks ago. He is running in the 8th District congressional race, the one that's open right now for Raja Krishnamurthy trying to run for the Senate. And Neil was on today to talk about a young woman who went missing a couple weeks ago, and him and Danny Davis have announced that they're seeking help in finding this woman. Neil, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Honor is mine. Thank you. And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. And so tell us a little bit about what happened here. I know that the woman's name is Lisa Shah, and she's been missing for 2 weeks, but that's about all I know about her.
So Lisa is a young girl, 35 years old, stays with her parents, has some mental anxiety, and we lost her missing around 17th of October around 10 a.m. in Garfield Park. She was in hospital of Glen Oaks, and from there she was dispatched to a community center, and then she went to the community center, stood there for an hour. The community center was closed, and then from there she started walking on Kedzie north towards Lake Street. She took a right, and from that point, we have not been able to identify or locate her or find her. And it's been about 12 days now that she has been missing. And her father got to me knowing I'm running for Congress. He got to me saying, you are a community leader before you did this. Can you help me? And at that point, I started looking into it. And from there, we have involved Office of Congressman Danny K. Davis, because that is his district. We've talked with the local police commander. We have a private investigator that we have put on the case. Our lawyer is working on it. And I myself am taking a deep interest to ensure that this girl comes back home. We just finished Diwali, which is a festival of lights, a fight of good over evil, and we want to see that Lisa comes back home safe and alive, and that's what our hope is right now.
And you and Congressman Davis had like an announcement to for a reward. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. We have placed a reward of $10,000 to anybody that can take us to Lisa, give some information that leads to her being found or safe, the last we have seen her is around the Garfield Park area, Humboldt Park area. And I sincerely want to request to the community and the leaders around that area to please see if they can find Lisa. She's an Indian girl, 35 years old. You can find her picture on the website and Facebook page of WCPT is there, and then they can call the number given on the image there.
Okay, thank you so much, Neil. And yeah, I mean, thanks for returning to the program and telling us about this noble effort here. Have the police been cooperative with you guys in searching for her?
They have been, but they have many cases, we understand. But the Garfield police station, the superintendent, as well as the lead detective had been in touch with us, especially a detective, I would say, by the name Pawlowski. Just want to say thank you to him. He has been in touch with our private investigator, and I think they're exchanging information because we know they are burdened with many cases, but we want to make sure that this case gets attention. Lisa is a young girl, and the parents, Ashwin and Ina, have pledged, and we were just on WGN television last few days ago, 2 days ago, and they make a humble request for her to come back home, wherever she is, if she is listening to this channel, or if anyone else who's listening around the Garfield Park, Humboldt Park, we request her to come back home. They are eagerly, anxiously waiting. They're not angry or anything. They just want her back safe.
Well, thank you so much, Neil, and we wish you luck and ourselves luck in being able to track Lisa down, and hopefully she makes it home safe to us. Thank you for joining the show today, Neil.
Thank you so much, Paul.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up here on Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I want to thank all of our guests today. Of course, Neil Khot, who you just heard, who was also on this program a couple weeks ago talking about his candidacy. If you want to go back in the archives and listen to that, it was from October 20th, and you can find that podcast where you can find all of our podcasts just by searching Driving It Home full episodes and featured interviews. Search on Spotify, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, all of those places where you listen to your podcasts. Neil's got an interesting story. Came to this country with only $300 in his pocket. He's been living here for 25 years, has a computer engineering degree, a 4-year engineering school on a merit scholarship, and quite a fascinating candidate in the 8th District. Neil Khot was with us. Reed Showalter, who's running in the 7th District. Danny Davis's spot also joined us in this hour. Jen Golbeck, a professor computer scientist, joined us in this hour to talk about extremism on the far right. And last hour, we talked to Mark Gevaart, who is a producer and host of the My Labor radio program. Before I wrap up tonight, something personal to me, I wanted to make an announcement and kind of break it here. Nothing crazy to talk about here, but on November 27th, of course, it'll be the Thanksgiving holiday. And normally the programming here on WCPT, sometimes we have pre-recorded program or we play like a best of episode. And in the case of Tom Hartman, it's usually a replay of either the previous day's episode or an episode that took place in the previous week. But management was kind enough to ask the Sports Cubicle if they would like to fill in during that time slot specifically for the Thanksgiving holiday. We got Lady B clapping in the back, one of our biggest supporters. And yeah, it's just for that one day. So for those of you that are Tom Hartman fans and are going to be wondering, hey, wait a minute, who is this guy? Why is, why are these guys talking sports on my airwaves on Thanksgiving? Well, they wanted to give us an opportunity to highlight what we do, get us to a larger audience, and give you guys a chance to see what we're about on the Sports Cubicle. We're not too much of the beer drinking slobs at the end of the bar telling you what happened in the game, but we do a little bit of that, but we also try to talk about some of the stuff that you would want to hear on a progressive sports show. So join us on November 27th, 11 a.m. Central Time until 2 p.m. Central Time is the Sports Cubicle for one day only. We'll have a prime time slot where you can actually hear us, and we'll be live in studio. So, of course, we look forward to that. And, of course, myself, I'll be watching Game 6 of the World Series tonight. Baseball is one of my favorite sports to watch. The World Series is like a holiday to me. I have no real dog in this this fight. I guess I'm rooting tonight for the Dodgers to win just because I want to see a Game 7. I'm crazy like that. I'm the type of guy that watched Game 3 the other night and watched every single inning, all 18 of those innings, all close to 7 hours of that ball game, and I stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning to watch Freddie Freeman hit that walk-off home run. So I'm looking forward to that tonight. And I want to thank everybody for listening today. Neil Khot, Reed Showalter, Jen Golbeck, Mark Gevaart, thank you for being a guest today. Thank you, Lady B, for holding things down in the back. And, of course, always being a supporter of all the things I do. It really means a lot to me. Thank you to Andy Miles, who helped me prepare this show today, as well as Jerry Wolski, the producer of this show, and Patti Vasquez, of course, for giving me this opportunity, as well as everybody in the WCPT Heartland Signal family. So long, everybody, and I send it back to Lady B.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental